2 Samuel 1. And it came to pass, after the death of Saul, when David returned from the defeat of the Amalekites, that he stayed 2 days in Ziklag. On the 3rd day a man came from Saul's camp, his clothes torn and with dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell to the ground and bowed down. And David said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." And David said to him, "How is that there? I beg you, tell me." And he answered him, "The people fled from the battle, and many of the people fell and died, just as Saul and Jonathan his son were slain." And David said to the young man who brought him the news, "How do you know that Saul and Jonathan his son were killed?" Then said the young man who brought him the news, "I happened to come to Mount Gilboa, and behold, Saul was leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the cavalry pressed him. And looking behind him, he saw me, and called me, and I said, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' And I said to him, 'I am an Amalekite.' Then he said to me, 'I beg you, fall on me, and kill me, because anguish has surrounded me, for all my life is still in me.' So I rushed at him and killed him, because I knew I would not live after his fall, and I took the crown that was on his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I brought them here to my lord." Then David took hold of his garments, and tore them, so did all the men that were with him. And they mourned, and wept, and fasted until evening for Saul, and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. Then David said to the young man who brought him the news, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I am the son of a foreigner, an Amalekite." And David said to him, "How are you not afraid to stretch out your hand to kill the Lord's anointed?" Then David called one of the young men, and said, "Arise, and fall upon him." And he smote him, and he died. For David had said unto him, "Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy own mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed." And David lamented to Saul and Jonathan his son with this lamentation. He said to teach the children of Judah how to use the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher, "Ah, ornament of Israel! In your high places he was wounded, how the mighty fell. Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised leap for joy. You mountains of Gilboa, let neither dew nor rain fall on you, nor be there fields of heave offerings, for there the shield of the mighty has been thrown down contemptuously, the shield of Saul, as if it had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, Jonathan's bow never turned back, nor did Saul's sword return empty. Saul and Jonathan, so loved and cherished in his life, were not separated even in his death, they were swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep for Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and delights, who made you wear gold ornaments on your garments. How the mighty fell in the midst of the battle. Jonathan in thy high places was slain. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan, how kind you were to me. Your love was more wonderful to me than the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. 2 Samuel 2. And it came to pass after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, To Hebron. And David went up there, and also his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelite, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. David also brought up the men that were with him, each one with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. Then the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, The men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. Then David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead, to say to them, Blessed are you of the Lord, who have shown such kindness to your master Saul, and buried him. Now therefore, the Lord deal with you in kindness and faithfulness, and I also will do you this good, because you have done this. Now therefore let your hands be strong, and be ye mighty men, for your lord Saul is dead, and the house of Judah also anointed me their king. But Abner, son of Ner, captain of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, Saul's son, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. 40 years old was Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years, but the house of Judah followed David. And the number of days that David reigned in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Then Abner the son of Ner went out with the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David, went out and met one another by the pool of Gibeon, and they stopped on this side of the pool, and the others on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men rise, and let them play before us." And Joab said, "Rise up." Then they arose and passed over, 12 of Benjamin by number, from Ishbosheth, Saul's son, and 12 of David's servants. And each one seized the head of the other, thrust his sword into his side, and they fell together. Therefore that place was called Helkath Hazurim, which is by Gibeon. And there followed that day a fierce battle, but Abner and the men of Israel were smitten before David's servants. And the 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel was swift of foot, like the gazelles of the field. And Asahel pursued Abner, and he did not turn from behind Abner, either to the right or to the left. And Abner, looking back, asked, "Art thou Asahel?" And he said, "I am." Then Abner said to him, "Turn aside to the right or to the left, and take hold of one of the young men, and take his spoil." But Asahel would not stray from behind him. Then Abner said again to Asahel, "Get behind me, why should I strike you down and bring you to the ground? And how could I lift up my face to Joab your brother?" But, not wanting him to go astray, Abner smote him with the point of the spear through the 5th rib, and the spear came out from behind him, and he fell there, and died on the same spot. And it came to pass, that all who came to the place where Asahel fell and died, stopped. But Joab and Abishai pursued Abner, and the sun went down, and they came to the hill of Ammah, which is before Giah, by the way of the desert of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together behind Abner, and they made a company, and they stood on the top of a hill. Then Abner called to Joab, and said, "Will the sword consume forever? Do you not know that in the end there will be bitterness? And how long will you not tell the people to stop persecuting their brothers?" And Joab said, "As God lives, if you had not spoken, not until morning would the people have stopped, each one, from pursuing his brother." Then Joab blew the horn, and all the people stopped, and they pursued Israel no more, neither did they fight any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night in the plain, and, crossing the Jordan, they walked through all Bitram, and came to Mahanaim. Joab also returned from pursuing Abner, and gathered all the people together, and of David's servants lacked 19 men, and Asahel. But the servants of David smote from among those of Benjamin, and from among the men of Abner, 360 men, who were slain there. And they lifted up Asahel, and buried him in his father's tomb, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men journeyed all that night, and day dawned for them in Hebron. 2 Samuel 3. And there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David was getting stronger, but those of the house of Saul were getting weaker. And to David were born children in Hebron, and Amnon his firstborn was from Ahinoam the Jezreelite. And his second, Chileab, by Abigail, wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, son of Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. And the fourth, Adonijah, son of Haggith, and the fifth, Shephatiah, son of Abdul. And the sixth, Ithream, of Eglah, also David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And when there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, it came to pass that Abner became mighty in the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you taken my father's concubine?" Then Abner was very angry at the words of Ishbosheth, and said, "Am I a dog's head, belonging to Judah? Even today I do kindness to the house of Saul, your father, to his brothers, and to his friends, and I did not deliver you into the hand of David, and today you seek a reason to argue with me because of the wickedness of a woman. God do so to Abner, and more also, if, as the Lord swore to David, I do not do so to him, transferring the kingdom from the house of Saul, and confirming the throne of David over Israel, and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba." And no words could he answer Abner, because he feared him. Then Abner sent messengers to David from his side, saying, Whose land is it? And he said more, Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand will be with you to return all Israel to you. And David said, Well, I will make an agreement with you, but one thing I ask of you, you will not see my face, if you do not first bring me Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, Give me my wife Michal, whom I married for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And he sent Ishbosheth, and took her from her husband, to Paltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went with her, walking and weeping after her, as far as Boram. Then Abner said to him, Go away, now return. And he came back. And Abner spoke with the elders of Israel, saying, For a long time you sought that David should reign over you. Do it now therefore, for the Lord spake unto David, saying, By the hand of David my servant will I deliver my people out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spoke to those of Benjamin, and Abner also went to tell those of David in Hebron all that was good in the eyes of Israel and in the eyes of all the house of Benjamin. And Abner went to David at Hebron, and 20 men with him, and David made Abner and the men with him a feast. Then Abner said to David, I will arise and go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, to make an agreement with you, and thou shalt reign over all that thy soul desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from a battle, and they had great spoil with them, and Abner was not with David in Hebron, because he had sent him away, and had gone in peace. When Joab came, and all the host that was with him, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and sent him away, and went in peace. Then Joab went to the king, and said, What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you, why then did you dismiss him, so that it could be so freely? Thou knowest Abner the son of Ner, who came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to understand all that thou doest. And Joab, departing from David, sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of Sirah, without David knowing it. So when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside to the entrance of the gate, to speak with him in secret, and he smote him there by the 5th rib, and he died, because of the blood of Asahel his brother. When David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are innocent before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it fall on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and never be lacking in the house of Joab who has a discharge, or who is a leper, or who holds a staff, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner, because he killed Asahel his brother in the battle at Gibeon. So David said to Joab and to all the people that were with him, Rend your clothes, and gird yourselves with sackcloth, and go wailing before Abner. And King David was following the bier. And when he was burying Abner in Hebron, the king lifted up his voice, and wept at Abner's grave, and wept all the people. And the king, mourning Abner, said, Shall Abner die as the villain dies? Your hands were not bound, nor were your feet burdened with fetters, but you fell like those who fall before the sons of wickedness. Then all the people wept much more for him. Then all the people came to make David eat bread, while it was still day, but David swore, saying, So may God do to me, and more if I taste bread or anything before the sun goes down. What all the people understood, seemed good in their eyes, just as everything the king did was good in the eyes of all the people. And all the people and all Israel understood that very day that it had not proceeded from the king to slay Abner the son of Ner. Then said the king unto his servants, Know ye not that a prince and a great man have fallen in Israel this day? That I am weak today, though anointed king, these men, sons of Zeruiah, are tougher than I am, the Lord will repay the evildoer according to his iniquity. 2 Samuel 4. When Saul's son heard that Abner had died at Hebron, his hands were slackened, and all Israel were astonished. And Saul's son had 2 men captains of troops, and it was the name of the one Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab, children of Rimmon the Beerothite, of the children of Benjamin, for Beeroth also was reputed to be Benjamin. And the Beerothites had fled to Githaim, and there they have sojourned to this day. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was crippled in both feet, He was 5 years old when the news of Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel, and his nurse took him and fled. And it came to pass, as she hastened to flee, that he fell, and was lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. And the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, Rehab and Baanah, went and entered the house of Ishbosheth in the greatest heat of the day, while he was lying down to sleep, at noon. And there they entered into the middle of the house, as if coming for wheat, and they smote him in the 5th rib, and Rechab and Baanah his brother escaped. For they entered his house, while he was lying on his bed, in his room, and struck him, and killed him, and cut off his head, and, taking his head, they walked all night across the plain. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David to Hebron, and said to the king, Here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your death. So the Lord avenged my lord the king this day, of Saul and of his seed. But David answering Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, said to them, As the Lord lives, who redeemed my soul out of all trouble. If he who brought me good news, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, but in his eyes it seemed to be like one bringing good news, I immediately took hold of him and killed him at Ziklag, thinking that I have this reward. How much more ungodly men, who slew a righteous man in his house, on his bed? Now therefore, should I not require his blood at your hands, and cut you off from the land? And David commanded his young men to kill them, and they cut off their feet and hands, and hung them over the pool of Hebron, but they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in Abner's tomb in Hebron. 2 Samuel 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David in Hebron, and they spoke, saying, Here we are your bone and your flesh. And also in former times, when Saul was still king over us, you were the one who went out and brought in Israel, and the Lord also said to you, You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will be prince over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and King David made an agreement with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. 30 years old was David when he began to reign, 40 years he reigned. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. And the king went with his men to Jerusalem against the Jebusites who dwelt in that land, and they spoke to David, saying, Thou shalt not enter hither, for the blind and the lame shall drive thee away, meaning, David shall not enter hither. But David took the stronghold of Zion, this is the city of David. For David said on that day, Whoever smites the Jebusites, let him go up to the canal and smite the lame and the blind, whom the soul of David hates. Therefore it is said, Neither the blind nor the lame shall enter this house. So David dwelt in the stronghold, and called it the city of David, and David was building round about, from Millo inward. And David grew and grew more and more, because the Lord God of hosts was with him. And Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, who built David a house. And David understood that the Lord had confirmed him king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people. And David took more concubines and women from Jerusalem, after he came from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. And these are the names of those born to him in Jerusalem, Shammua, and Shobab, and Nathan, and Solomon, and Abar, and Elishua, and Nepheg, and Japhia, and Elisama, and Eliada, and Eliphalet. When the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to seek David, what hearing David, went down to the fortress. And the Philistines came, and extended themselves through the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for I will surely give the Philistines into your hand. So David went to Baal-perazim, and there David smote them, and said, The Lord hath broken forth before me, as one breaking up waters. Therefore he called the name of that place Baal-perazim. And there they left their idols, and David and his men took them. And the Philistines went up again, and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, who said, Thou shalt not go up, but go around behind them, and you will come to them in front of the mulberry trees. And it will be that, when you hear the sound of marching through the tops of the mulberry trees, then you will hurry, for the Lord went out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. And David did as the Lord had commanded him, and he smote the Philistines from Geba to Gezer. 2 Samuel 6. And David gathered again all the chosen of Israel, to the number of 30,000. And David arose, and departed, and all the people that were with him, to Baalim of Judah, to carry up from there the ark of God, upon which the name is invoked, the name of the Lord of hosts, who sits between the cherubim. And they put the ark of God on a new cart, and brought it from the house of Abinadab, which is in Gibeah, and Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, drove the new chariot. And taking him from the house of Abinadab, which is in Gibeah, with the ark of God, Ahio went before the ark. And David, and all the house of Israel, feasted before the Lord, with all sorts of instruments of aspen wood, and also with harps, and with psalteries, and with tambourines, and with cymbals. And when he came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah stretched out his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, because the oxen let it hang. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for this rashness, and he died there by the ark of God. And David was grieved, because the Lord had broken through Uzzah, and he called that place Perez-Uzzah, to this day. And David feared the Lord that day, and he said, How shall the ark of the Lord come to me? And David would not take the ark of the Lord to him from the city of David, but David had her brought to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord stayed in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his house. Then it was told David, saying, The Lord blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that he had, because of the ark of God. So David went and brought the ark of God up from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with joy. And it came to pass, when those who carried the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed oxen and fat rams. And David leaped with all his might before the Lord, and David was girded with a linen ephod. So going up, David and all Israel brought the ark of the Lord with shouting and the sound of trumpets. And it came to pass, as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, that Michal, Saul's daughter, was looking through the window, and when she saw King David dancing and leaping before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of the Lord, and set it in its place, in the tent that David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had made an end of offering the burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he distributed to all the people, and to the whole multitude of Israel, both men and women, to each one a loaf of bread, and a good piece of meat, and a flask of wine. Then all the people departed, each to his own house. And when David returned to bless his house, Michal the daughter of Saul came out to meet David, and said, How honorable was the king of Israel, discovering himself today in the eyes of the handmaidens of his servants, as without I'm sorry if any of the strays are discovered. But David said to Michal, In the sight of the Lord, who chose me above your father and all his house, and commanded me to be ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel, I have rejoiced before the Lord. And even more than this I will debase myself, and humble myself in my own eyes. But of the handmaids, of whom you spoke, by them I will be honored. And Michal, Saul's daughter, was childless until the day of her death. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel, leave your like, and make a comment.